Got beaten up at university by a furious wife mistakes me for my sister, who's secretly seeing her married husband. I have no idea where my idiot sister is, because she went on vacation with her friends. All I know is that when I finally see her, I'm going to pull her hair out. She absolutely deserves it. My sister and I both go to the same university, and even though we're 3 years apart, we look so strikingly similar that people confuse us for twins all the time. Today, I paid the price for that resemblance. As soon as I left campus and started heading to my car, out of nowhere, a woman launched herself at me and started dragging me by the hair. She was screaming all kinds of insults at me, her voice echoing in my ears while I was in total shock. My first instinct was to defend myself. I honestly thought maybe this was a random attack, maybe someone homeless having a meltdown or something. I grabbed her hair and fought back until my friends managed to pull her off me. This woman was sobbing uncontrollably, and I noticed 2 more women with her, yelling at my friends while everything descended into total chaos. Amid her tears, the woman started accusing me of being her husband's slut, flinging accusations I couldn't even process right away. In that hectic moment, I suddenly realized what was really going on. My sister, who's been seeing some older guy, she doesn't tell me much, but she's always showing off expensive gifts from him. I tried to explain to the woman that she was looking for my sister, not me. But her friends started screaming that I must be just as slutty as my sister, which, for the record, I'm definitely not, or at least, I think I'm not. They actually tried to fight me again, but then the police showed up and things got messier than I could have imagined. Now I'm here, my scalp stinging from scratches and my back raw from being scraped along the asphalt. My hair feels like it's been torn out by the roots. And my wonderful sister? She's not answering any of my calls, leaving me to deal with the wreckage she left behind. I keep trying to call her so I can at least hear what the hell she did that led to this, before I break the whole story to our mom. If I tell my parents about what happened, I know they might seriously pull the plug on my sister's education. Not that this is the first time she's gotten herself into a mess like this. Am I going to tell them? Absolutely, but only after I get the full story from my sister first. It's humiliating that I got beaten up at my own university for something I didn't even do. The thought of going back on Monday, knowing people probably think I'm the villain in all of this, makes my skin crawl. The worst part is, I actually feel for that woman, her pain, her betrayal, but I didn't deserve any of what happened today. My sister, frankly, is a train wreck just waiting to happen, so I'm not even surprised she's tangled up in this kind of drama. At the very least, though, that woman could have asked my name before attacking me. Update 1. Hi, my sister came back from her so-called vacation a few days ago. I had purposely waited for her return because there was no way I was going to let her escape telling our parents the truth about everything that happened. She needed to be the one to face them and explain herself. Let me set the stage. My sister lives with our parents, which, by the way, isn't because she's a teenager. She's almost 30. For whatever reason, she's still at home, and despite what people assume, there's nothing unusual about adults living at home, especially when there are even people over 40 attending college these days. So when she finally came back, I was ready. The moment my parents saw me, they immediately demanded to know what the hell had happened to me. But I told them to wait, everything was going to come out when my sister arrived, and I wanted her to be the one to spill it. I've known my sister's type for a long, long time. Some people, no matter how much you want to believe otherwise, delight in being the other woman. They get a thrill from the forbidden, and my sister is exactly that. Since she was younger, she would flirt with her friends' boyfriends. I think she did it just to measure her own worth against theirs. The only line she never crossed was with any of my boyfriends, at least she respected that much. Now, though, in her late 20s, she prefers the company of married men. To her, it's the perfect setup. She gets gifts, fun, admiration, but none of the pressure or expectations of being an actual wife. We've clashed more than once over this. She says straight up that this is her way of life. To me, it's painfully obvious. It's an ego problem, a self-esteem problem. But that's who she is. She has to always prove she can get anything she wants, even if it's someone else's husband. Anyway, a few days ago, the cheater she got involved with sent her a panicked message. His wife had found out about everything, beat him, and threw him out of their house. The wife even found my sister's Instagram and bombarded her with furious messages, demanding she stay away from her family. Apparently, the man had even brought his kids along on some of the dates with my sister. Unbelievable. But my sister, being the reckless idiot she can be, didn't back down. Instead, she showed me how she actively provoked the woman in those messages, taunting her, calling her names, basically daring this woman to come after her. And that's how I wound up getting beaten. The wife did show up, but when she saw me, who looks just like my sister, she attacked me instead. My sister, meanwhile, said she didn't believe the woman would actually follow through with violence. After this all went down, I tried reaching out to her myself, but she ignored me, probably afraid of dealing with the mess and the negative fallout, and because she knew, deep down, what kind of disaster she'd caused. Honestly, after seeing all the awful things she wrote to that poor woman, I lost any shred of sympathy I had for my sister. She basically egged the wife on for a fight. Reading those messages was all I needed to realize she's never truly been a good person. I was furious, but my mother was even more enraged. It wasn't the first time our family had felt the fallout of her adventures. Sometimes we'd lost friends, sometimes money, but this time I got physically attacked, and that's so much worse. My sister tried to justify herself by insisting she's single, so she bears no responsibility for any marriage she breaks up. My mother didn't buy it for a moment. She told my sister straight up that we all suffer because of her selfish behavior, and that what she's doing is morally wrong. She's actively helping to destroy families, just to stroke her ego. Of course, my sister ended things the way she always does, with a tantrum. She even had the nerve to blame me for looking like her, as if it was my fault I got hurt. But this time, my father had enough. He kicked her out, packed her things, and out she went. What broke my heart the most was watching my parents apologize to me for their own daughter's awful actions. It's painful, watching not just myself but my parents, and other innocent people, suffer because of my sister's behavior. As for the wife, she actually reached out to me the next day, genuinely remorseful. She said she'd pay any medical bills, but honestly, I'm fine. She sounded much calmer, away from her friend's influence, and confessed she'd never done anything like this before but felt this intense hatred toward my sister and her ex because of how they'd talked about her, even in front of their children. She really did sound regretful. I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't wish she had just given my sister what she deserved. Maybe that doesn't make me a good person, but I can't help how I feel sometimes. So there it is, my parents still aren't speaking to my sister, and honestly, I hope it stays that way for a while. At least then, I don't have to see her, even for a second. Update 2. Basically, my sister is pregnant. She has a new boyfriend, pretty obvious what happened there. When she broke the news about the baby, she suddenly started talking to my parents again, even though they hadn't spoken for months. Deep down, I knew exactly why. Our parents would never leave her alone in a moment like this, and she knew it. I keep hoping that motherhood might help her finally shape up, but honestly, I doubt it, especially seeing the way she treats our mom now, like a live-in maid. My mother has to wash her clothes by hand and cook around the clock for my precious sister, who acts like she can't even lift a finger. Mind you, our parents are older, and their bodies don't work like they used to, but none of that matters to her. I don't judge my parents, their worry for the baby makes sense, and my sister has always known exactly which buttons to press. She has this uncanny talent for manipulating them, always has. For months, my parents kept their distance, but now she comes back with the ultimate move, a grandchild on the way, and suddenly she's front and center again, reaping the rewards. My parents are completely aware she's not responsible, but can't help themselves. Her boyfriend? He's a regular guy, but even he doesn't have his own place. They're both living with his parents at the moment, and that's eating away at my parents' peace of mind. I've heard that the boyfriend's mother has started dropping hints that she wants them to move out, so the drama just keeps spilling over. For my part, I'm not distancing myself from my parents, I love them. But I've made it clear, if there's a family gathering, it's at my house now. That way, I don't get blindsided by my sister's surprise visits to my parents. Anyone out there with a difficult sibling but a loving family will understand the impossible and exhausting tightrope I'm walking. Switching gears, something unexpected happened. I've actually struck up a casual friendship with the woman who once hit me. I know this sounds wild, but I can't bring myself to condemn a woman for lashing out at her cheating husband and his mistress, even if she hit me too. Truth is, she spent weeks sincerely apologizing to me, got her friends to apologize too. Eventually, I forgave her. After all, I can't hate someone for reacting in a moment of pain. I did make her cover the cost of my damaged hair and press charges. Actions need to have consequences. That goes for everyone. Sometimes, I can't believe the fantasy world people seem to live in when they pass judgment on stories like mine. I've been accused of being a bad sister, called cold because I've stopped trying to save a narcissist. Some even suggested I should have reported my sister and gotten her locked up. As if that's how things work for a brawl in the street. Where I'm from, people get away with much worse and walk free. Men murder their entire families, and the police barely blink. As for this woman who hit me, we aren't close, but we've hung out a few times. She never divorced her husband because she couldn't afford it, but they haven't lived together since. She's genuine, actually a kind person, and now that I really know her, I can't blame her for snapping. Her ex made disgusting recordings for my sister with their kids right there in the room. I've heard the audios, his voice, dirty talk, the kids running around in the background. Honestly, screw him. If I were her, I would have done much worse. I don't know how much those recordings will help her case in the divorce, but I hope the court throws the book at him. Exposing your own kids to that filth should be enough to land someone in jail. But life isn't fair. The only mistake this woman made was hitting me, not my sister. That's the one injustice I'll be carrying for a long time. Her children adore her. I know she's a good mom and a good person. I can admit, I might have done the same, maybe even gone further. Sometimes, losing your mind is only human. Do I want to see my sister get served a little karma one day? Absolutely. But she always seems to land on her feet. That's the ugly truth. Yesterday, I had to witness my sister berate my mother, hiding behind the excuse of pregnancy hormones. The one thing that gives me any peace is knowing my parents support me and agree that from now on, any meetups are at my house or someplace neutral. Honestly, I just needed to get all this out of my system. Sometimes, I wish someone would simply put my sister in her place. I remember some people wondering about the trouble my sister got into that hit our family financially. My father used to work as a security guard for a wealthy family. He was making good money when my sister, in her 20s, started sleeping with my father's boss, some young guy who already had a girlfriend. That girlfriend found out, and my dad was fired on her demand. We went through hell after that. My father pursued a lawsuit and got a little compensation, but it was nothing compared to what he'd been making. And when life is that uncertain, even the cost of electricity can eat up a third of your paycheck. That's my messy world, and my even messier family. Update 3. I thought the next time I wrote anything it would be about a baby shower cupcake meltdown or whatever. Instead, last week a man from a collections agency called me and asked when I was going to pay for my brand new iPhone on a line open with my name and my ID, shipped to my sister's boyfriend's address. I hung up, drove to my parents' house, and dug through the drawer where we keep old documents. My passport was there. My spare university ID wasn't. My sister had taken a picture of it months ago, back when she still lived at home, for discounts, and used it to open the account. When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. She told me I owed her because I grew up easier and because we look alike anyway. Then she cried on cue for my mother, who went white as a sheet and still went to boil her tea like that would cure fraud. I filed the report. I sat there in a tiny room with a detective and said my own sister stole my identity because a payment plan looked easier than a job. It felt like taking a pair of scissors and cutting the last thread between us. My father drove me there and didn't speak the entire ride back, then he changed the locks. My mother begged me to wait until after the baby to press anything too hard. I told her the report was already filed. Later that night, my sister texted me paragraphs about how I was ruining her pregnancy. I blocked her and stood in my shower until the water ran cold. 2 days later, her boyfriend made his move. Apparently someone at his mother's church did the math out loud about due dates, and he demanded a paternity test. He tried to be slick about it, asked her to sign some insurance forms at his mother's kitchen table, but she can't read a room when the room stops clapping. She flipped the table, called him poor, called his mother worse, and dragged a suitcase down their stairs while his mother tossed her shoes out one by one onto the sidewalk. It rained. My dad picked her up with a backseat full of baby bags she never paid for. I opened my apartment door that evening and put a basket with a spare set of sheets on the floor for him, because I know what a house sounds like after someone has screamed in it. While that disaster burned, the woman who once hit me had her hearing. She asked if I would sit with her for support. So I did. She had on a plain blue blouse and hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and the man she married walked in like court was a performance and he was the star. He tried to corner me outside the restroom during a recess, asked if I enjoyed ruining families and called me by my sister's name like a spell he could cast. I held my phone up, hit record, and watched his mouth fold into something small. Inside, the judge skimmed those recordings he made with his kids running around in the background and the messages my sister sent egging him on. The judge didn't care about my bruises anymore, that case is already its own thing, but he did care about the children. Supervised visits. Temporary order. A warning so clear even he understood it. When we stepped outside, the woman squeezed my hand so hard it hurt and then let go like she had to remind herself I wasn't her sister. Then yesterday at dawn, my phone lit up with my mother's name. "She's in pain," she said. "We can't get a taxi. Please." I stared at the wall for a full minute. Then I put on sweatpants, grabbed my keys, and pulled up to my parents' building where my sister stood doubled over, screaming at my mother for the wrong diaper brand between contractions. In the car, she demanded I forgive everything because babies need family. I told her to breathe. She cursed me out anyway. At the hospital, she thrust a pen into my hand to sign some admission form in her place so the insurance goes through. I put the pen down on the counter and told the nurse I wasn't her. The nurse nodded like she's seen every version of this movie. When they asked for the father's information, she wrote down the married man's name clear as day. Not the boyfriend, not unknown. Him. He arrived half an hour later with flowers from a gas station and this ridiculous cologne that made the whole hallway smell like a nightclub bathroom. He tried to hug me like we were all one big sitcom. I stepped back so fast the flowers hit the floor and cracked the paper cone. I watched him tuck his wedding ring into his wallet when he thought no one was looking. He didn't look at my mother. She didn't look at him. My father stood there with his arms folded so tightly across his chest I thought he might crack a rib. I didn't stay for the birth. I sat in the cafeteria with bad coffee and a TV showing the news with no sound until my dad texted she's fine. When I went upstairs, the baby was sleeping in a plastic bassinet with a tiny hat. My sister was drowsy and glowing in the way only people who create chaos and get celebrated for bare biology can glow. She tried to hand me the baby and said, "Meet your niece, my name, Junior." I laughed, because sometimes your only choices are laugh or scream. I told her to pick a name that would one day look her in the eyes and ask questions she deserves. By the afternoon, the man had posted a picture of his wristband and a baby foot on his close friends. The woman sent me a screenshot she got forwarded, and then called to say in a voice made of knives and ash that if the law wants to pretend this child is hers because the papers say married, she will sign whatever she has to sign to untangle herself. She wasn't crying. She sounded like someone who buried something and then kept walking. The identity theft case moved faster than I thought, It turns out phone companies care when people actually shove back. They froze the account. The detective called my sister for a statement. She said she didn't remember doing it. I sent the email where she had sent me a selfie with the phone in front of a mirror captioned "New baby, new phone." My father sat at the table and listened to every word with his hands flat on the wood. My mother asked me if I would please hold the baby once, because maybe love would fix what she can't. I kissed her forehead instead and told her I'm not a bandage. This will be the last thing I write because I'm done living with an open door for a tornado. I'm an aunt to a baby who didn't choose any of this, and I will send gifts to my parents' house, and I will not be alone in a room with my sister again. The woman who hit me texted me a picture of her kids painting a cardboard spaceship, and for the first time in months I felt something like relief settle in my ribs. The man who caused all this will be paying someone, somewhere, until he's old. My sister is still the sun of her own little universe, burning everyone who gets too close. I'm building myself a home far enough away that I can see the smoke but not smell it. And if she ever tries to use my name again, I'll make sure the only thing she gets from me is a file number. Update 4. I lied when I said I was done. My mailbox made the decision for me. A thick white envelope addressed to parent/guardian of my name, from a pediatric clinic I've never stepped foot in. My sister had listed me as the guarantor on her baby's account and put my address down like a dare. I drove there before work, stood at a speckled counter that smelled like hand sanitizer and grape lollipops, and slid my ID across to a receptionist who didn't blink. She printed a form that says I'm not the parent or the guarantor and scanned it into their system. Happens more than you think, she said, the same way the nurse at the hospital nodded when I put the pen down. I called the detective in the parking lot. He sighed in that tired, polite way cops sigh when someone keeps handing them more work and said, "Thanks. Keep the envelope." The very next day, a lab with cartoon fish on the walls and a bucket of single-use lollipops became the quietest boxing ring I've ever been in. The judge finally pushed a court-ordered paternity test, and my sister, because she's addicted to the sound of her own drama, scheduled the alleged fathers 20 minutes apart. I sat in a chair that felt like a school desk and watched her bounce the baby with one hand and check her reflection in her phone with the other. The boyfriend came first, hat low, his mother hovering like a thin, furious sparrow. He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't look at the baby. He just swabbed his cheek and stared at the linoleum while his mother mouthed a prayer into her sleeve. And then the cologne announced him before the door did. That same nightclub bathroom chemical cloud. He walked in like the hallway owed him applause and stopped short when he saw the boyfriend sitting there, his jaw doing that little tick men's jaws do when they realize there's another planet in their orbit. My sister smiled like it was a show she sold tickets to. The lab tech, a woman with gray hair and a flawless bun, put her palm up and said, "Too calm, one at a time or this gets cancelled." He grinned, pulled out his wallet, and I watched, again, as he slid his wedding ring into a slot, like a coin in a machine. I stepped outside and sipped water from a fountain that tasted like nickels until the baby started crying behind the door and my stomach did that dumb thing where it tried to help. When I went back in, the tech was disinfecting the counter like it had personally offended her. My sister tried to hand me the baby for good luck. I put my hands in my pockets. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a number from the clerk's office and a result that landed like a dropped plate. Not the married man. The boyfriend. 99.99%. I don't know what I expected to feel. Relief for the wife, maybe, rage for the boy, more heat for my sister, but what I got was quiet. Like the part of the movie where everyone stops yelling and you can hear the refrigerator hum. The married man sent a single text to my sister that said, "I need space." She posted a black square to her stories with the word betrayal in glitter font. His wife forwarded me his text to her, a paragraph about misunderstandings and timelines, and then a final period that felt like a shovel hitting something hard. That same afternoon, the detective called me from a number marked unknown and said the DA was filing on the identity theft, phone line, clinic guarantor, the whole pattern tied together with that selfie she sent me and the account shipments. He asked if I'd be willing to show up to arraignment if needed. I said yes. My voice didn't shake. He said she'd likely get her on a date, but there would be conditions. He also said, almost like a warning and almost like kindness, don't engage with her about this. Let the papers speak. My mother didn't call me about the court date. She sent a pot of soup home with my father in a plastic container that used to hold ice cream. He stood in my kitchen and put it on the counter and said, "I'll get the locked tools out after we eat." It wasn't about doors. We both knew that. At arraignment, my sister showed up with the baby in a soft pink hat and spit up down one sleeve of her sweatshirt like a prop she intended to weaponize. She scanned the courtroom like she was looking for her camera, found me, and rearranged her face into a wounded saint. The judge read the charges in a voice that could cut paper. My sister tried to cry. The baby hiccuped, loud enough that everyone smiled before they remembered where they were. The ADA asked for a stay-away order from my name, my ID, my address in any and all financial matters. The judge granted it. My mother's shoulders folded in on themselves like someone had let air out of her. My father stared at the clock the whole time. My sister kept trying to get my eye contact, and I just watched the second hand move in a perfect little circle. After, she cornered me in the hallway and tried to push the stroller at me like I wouldn't notice the hook hidden in the handle. "Just hold her," she said. "If you hold her, you'll fix this." I looked at my mother. She had that thin smile she reaches for when she's bleeding inside. I told my sister to talk to her lawyer. I walked past the vending machines and onto daylight. Behind me, the baby made that soft, hiccuping laugh again, and something inside me turned and then stayed put. The boyfriend's mother, the sparrow, called me that evening from a number I didn't recognize. She thanked me for showing up in rooms her son was too ashamed to sit in and asked if I could send her the name of the detective so this stops happening. She also said they were setting a bassinet at the foot of her bed and that she would be the one waking up tonight, not my sister. I believed her. She's the type of woman who can make soup out of bones and a curse. The married man tried one more trick. He waited by my car in the university garage, hands in his pockets like he was 13. "You could talk to the DA," he said, like he was offering me a cigarette behind the gym. "Tell them she didn't mean it. It's family." I unlocked my car, put my bag in the back, and turned my phone camera on without even looking. He did that thing again, misnamed me like it was a spell, and reached for my arm. A security guard barked from 2 rows over and he snapped his hand back so fast you could hear the wind. I emailed the clip to the detective before I pulled out of the stall. The reply came 2 minutes later: "Received. Do not engage." And because the universe insists on punchlines, the hospital billing department called the next morning about a duplicate policy number on the baby's file. My policy number. I drove there with my file folder, sat in a chair that pinched the back of my legs, and said my name out loud to 3 different people until the system let go of it. The clerk printed out a letter that said, in very formal words, that I am not financial party to this child, and slid it to me like a magic spell. I put it in a sleeve in my folder behind the new copies of my credit freeze confirmations and thought, stupidly, that the plastic felt heavier. Last night was the first time I held the baby. Not because my sister held me hostage with a stroller, but because my father called and said, very quietly, that my mother hadn't slept in 2 days and the baby had been screaming since rain started hitting the metal awning. I parked outside, went up, washed my hands at the sink with the lemon soap, and took this tiny, furious person into my arms. She curled into my chest like she'd been there before. She smelled like milk and clean cotton and that impossible newness. I walked circles in the living room we've cried in, past the TV with the sound off, past the framed photo of my parents when they were younger than I am now. She stopped crying. My mother didn't, thank me. She sat down and closed her eyes for 7 whole minutes. My sister wasn't there. She'd gone for air. Who knows whose. When I left, I put a grocery bag on the counter with formula and diaper cream and a pacifier that has a little stuffed animal attached to it because the pharmacist said babies love something to hold. I kissed my mother's hair. I told my father I'd be by on Saturday with new locks. He nodded like a man counting his own ribs. The woman who hit me sent me a photo this morning, her kids inside their cardboard spaceship again, this time with a paper star taped to the console with the baby's birth date written in marker. Under it she wrote, "We're making room." The court gave her a firm date, the divorce is finally moving, and his supervised visits are staying put. She sounded tired, but like the tired was work, not grief. My sister posted a boomerang of a bracelet with her name on it and a caption about loyalty. She texted my mother that she needs someone to co-sign a lease for the baby. My mother didn't answer. My phone pinged with a fraud alert from my bank, and for the first time in months, it wasn't her. It was a scammer trying to pretend to be the bank. I laughed in my empty apartment like a crazy person because, apparently, there are infinite universes of people willing to test a door. I changed my deadbolt. I put the key on my ring between the grocery store fob and the gym tag I never use. And I put the judge's order in the top drawer of my desk with the passports and the birth certificates and a list of numbers I call when the room starts to tilt. If she reaches for my name again, it won't matter how loud the baby cries or who's standing in what hallway. There's a lock now. And not just on my door. Update 5. The baby got sick on a Thursday that smelled like wet metal. My father's voice came flat through the phone. "She's wheezing. Your mother says her stomach keeps ballooning up after every bottle and then she throws it all back." My mother wanted to wait until my sister got off errands. I told him to get the car keys and to stop asking permission. Urgent care at dinnertime feels like an airport after all the flights have been cancelled. I signed my name at the kiosk and then stopped myself, lifted my finger off the screen like it was a hot stove. "Aunt," I told the nurse when she asked, and my father said grandfather, and then the sparrow slipped through the sliding doors without her coat buttoned and said paternal grandmother in the voice of a woman who has slept in her shoes before. They took the baby back because the nurse could hear the whistling without the stethoscope. I sat in a chair that bent my spine wrong while a TV on mute showed a cooking show where everything came out perfect. The doctor moved fast, clipped, asked questions like bullets: how long, how often, how many wet diapers, any smoke in the house, any fevers, and then he said, bronchiolitis, dehydration, admitted, oxygen. My mother tried to argue that maybe the baby just cries a lot. He didn't look at her, he looked at the baby. Someone else called in a social worker to have a talk because the intake note said no legal guardian present at arrival. My sister blew in 40 minutes later wearing sunglasses inside and holding an iced coffee she didn't pay for. She kissed the baby's forehead and told the nurse to bill our insurance, then slid the clipboard toward me like a trick you do with a drunk. I pushed it back with one finger. The social worker had hair like mine and the patience of a stone. She asked my sister where she'd been. Buying diapers, my sister said. The bag she dropped had a sequin jacket and a receipt from a bar. The social worker wrote something down without changing her face and then asked if the baby had been around smoke. No, my sister said. Her hair smelled like a patio with ashtrays. They put a tiny tube in my niece's nose and taped it with a piece of pale blue. She hated it in the way only people new to hating can hate. The sparrow paced and prayed in a whisper, and my father stood by the curtain and kept counting seconds between breaths like that would matter. The social worker came back with a laminated badge and the kind of voice that doesn't offer apologies. She explained what safety plan meant and that, for the next 72 hours, the baby goes home with a parent who can demonstrate a safe sleep space, a working thermometer, and someone sober. My sister said the word sober like it was an insult aimed at someone else. The sparrow took out her phone and started scrolling through pictures of a bassinet lined up square against her dresser and a white noise machine and 3 different sizes of bottles already sterilized, like she'd been waiting her whole life to testify. The detective found me in the hallway by a water fountain that spits like a snake. We've got her on calendar next week, he said, but she's here now, which makes service easy. I watched him walk toward my sister with a stack of paper and the polite, careful posture of a man approaching a dog that doesn't know it's small. She refused to touch the paperwork, theatrically. So he read her the date out loud in front of the curtain with cartoon giraffes and said the words pretrial conference, like he was reading a recipe. She called me a traitor and put both hands on the stroller that wasn't there. The baby slept through it. Maybe because the oxygen hissed like a lullaby, maybe because babies know when adults have run out of stupid words and are about to be quiet. They discharged her to the sparrow's address with orders printed in capital letters and a sheet about RSV I stuck into a folder like it was birth certificate worthy. My sister didn't fight the car seat buckles because she was busy yelling into her phone about how no one respects the mother. The sparrow clicked the straps into place with the authority of a woman who would take a bullet and also knows where to put the bullet when the time comes. The emergency custody hearing came faster than anything ever moves when you want it to. The courthouse chapel was closed for renovation, which felt like a punchline. The judge wore their mask of efficiency and looked at a pile of paper taller than my wrist. The paternity results were already in the file. The boyfriend sat 2 rows back twisting his cap and looking at his shoes like they'd started a conversation without him. My sister came in late, hair in a perfect bun, sweatshirt with the word mama and rhinestones, baby on her shoulder like proof you can wear. She said the words my milk and my bond and my rights. The judge said the words best interest of the child and temporary placement and visitation schedule and no substances 24 hours prior. The sparrow's eyes closed like someone had finally taken a hand off her throat. My sister tried to talk over the judge. The baby hiccuped again, like she was punctuating for us. Somewhere between the breathing treatment and the court order, my sister tried one more door. I got home to find the little camera above my building's mailboxes winking red. The property manager waved me upstairs and pressed play. There was my sister at 2:13 a.m., hood up, pushing fobs and laughing into the intercom, holding a piece of mail up to the lens like a trophy. 2 envelopes missing in the morning, my bank, my new credit freeze confirmation. I forwarded the clip to the detective before it even dropped my keys. The reply was clean, quick, violation of order. Warrant request. The feelings I had were not clean or quick. They were heavy and slow and very, very old. The married man tried to slither back into the story like a bad line you thought got cut. He found me at the copy machine at school, of all places, and did that thing again where he made my name wrong in his mouth, like he could magic me into the shape that fits him. She's falling apart, he said, leaning a hip against the counter like we were partners. You can stop this. He smelled like that cologne and a lie. I pressed the green button and let the machine spit 20 copies of nothing while I filmed his chin from an unflattering angle. Campus security walked him out by an elbow and the dean's secretary slipped me a packet about stalking policies that smelled like industrial toner. I sent the video to the detective. He wrote back, "Stop letting him talk at you." I wrote back, "He finds me." He called instead of texting for the first time and said, "Then we'll help him find the inside of a courtroom." On the day my niece's lungs remembered how to behave without help, the woman who once hit me wore a black dress and went to sign the papers that ended her marriage. She asked me to come and hold a folder while she handed over a pen. I don't know why, maybe because she likes when someone who knows how bad it got sees her stand up straight. In the hallway we crossed paths with him, the man who can't keep his hands to himself or his ring on. He looked at me like a ghost from a life where consequences didn't exist. I looked at the courthouse clock and thought about lungs and locks and the sound shoes make when you walk away on purpose. When she came back down the steps, she didn't cry. She took her ring off and put it in a small velvet box and then, I swear, handed it to the woman at the metal detector who had offered her a tissue. That morning. For the lost and found, she said. We ate a sandwich on a bench between 2 hawks who had learned to dive for crumbs. That night, my mother sat in the dark in her kitchen with the lights off like light costs extra. She says she'll take the baby and disappear, she told me, voice thin. She says her friend will drive them 2 hours away and I'll never see my granddaughter again. I poured tea into a mug with a chip in the rim and said, quiet, then you press call on the number, on the safety plan and you let people with keys and vests make that impossible. She nodded like she was counting her own breaths. I could hear the baby's small noisy sleep from the living room. The sparrow had set a bassinet by the couch like a nest on a ledge. It looked like a promise. They picked my sister up on the mailbox camera warrant at a nail salon 2 days later. She texted my mother from the back of a patrol car with a selfie and the words "Look what she did to me," like she was 14 again and got grounded for being mean. Booking looked like fluorescent lights and a face that has never not gotten away with it trying to learn a new alphabet. She was out by dinner because the world is like that, but now there are conditions that have teeth. No new credit, no new signatures, no contact about finances, no approaching my building or my school. Her lawyer wore a tie the color of a bruise and patted her shoulder like he was petting a cat that might draw blood. I went back to my apartment and found a gift bag hanging from my doorknob with tissue paper like tongues. Inside was a knit hat the size of an orange with ears and a note in my father's bad handwriting that said simply, "Fits." I sat on the floor with my back to the door and pressed the hat to my face and breathed in detergent and something that might one day be normal. On Sunday, we baptized our family in a way that had nothing to do with church. I took the Sparrow to the big box store and pushed a cart with a wheel that wanted to argue and filled it with diapers and formula and a baby monitor with 2 cameras because she said she sleeps lighter if she can see the rise and fall no matter which room she's standing in. I paid with my card and then paid with my name by saying it clearly to the clerk when she asked who to text for warranty purposes. My name, my voice, my face in a place where nothing is being stolen. It felt like rinsing ash out of hair you forgot was blonde underneath. After the baby fell asleep with that angry animal attached to the pacifier clutched in her fist, I sat on my parents' balcony with my mother and we watched the storm decide whether to happen. She mentioned a therapist card the social worker had given her and then tucked it back under the sugar jar. I didn't take it out. I let it sit there like a seed waiting for a little water and a day when the light hits right. My sister posted black and white photos of her profile and the baby's toes and a caption about fighting for my family against haters and then, 10 minutes later, put up a flyer for a club night next Friday with a glitter filter across her eyes. The Sparrow texted me "We're home" with a picture of the baby sleeping in a swaddle printed with stars and the news of a hearing date for a more permanent custody order. The detective emailed me a calendar invite and the Ada added me to a chain that included the words restitution schedule and credit counseling required and probationary period. I read every word like they might evaporate if I blinked wrong. Tonight the woman who once hit me sent me a video of her children pushing their cardboard spaceship across the rug so hard the tape on one wing gave up. You could hear her laugh off camera, the clear kind, the kind that opens a window. She'd taped another star to their console. This one said my niece's name, her real name, not the one my sister tried to give her, next to the birth date and a small drawn heart. Under it she wrote, "Saved you a seat." I stood in my doorway and listened to my apartment be quiet and thought about seats. The ones you refuse, the ones you build, the ones you leave empty on purpose. I'm still not standing in rooms with my sister. I still don't touch pens she puts in my hand, but I hold the baby when someone calls at midnight and says, voice small, "Can you walk her just until the storm passes?" I can. I do. I will, until the lungs, until the laws, until the locks, until the tiny person with the hat with ears can say her own name out loud, and it's hers, and that's the whole point.